That day started out as a very odd Sunday in the first place because he was sick and he's never, ever, 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 ever sick. Never been to the hospital in my entire life. And it wound up being Ramsay Hunt. So he had like this, crazy rash on his face that started in his ear all the way down the nerve. And that morning woke up with his face all swelled up and was like, there's something wrong. I think I actually need to go to urgent care. And I was like, that's crazy. If you're saying that, this is serious. So that's how the morning started out. So came home. They diagnosed him with Ramsay Hunt, and he was in a lot of pain. But our son came over, and they were watching.
So I'm not going to traumatize you guys and show you what a Ramsay Hunt rash looks like. If you really want to see, Google will tell you. But it's pretty gross, and it's pretty bad. And I just don't see how that rash would have been totally healed from Steve's face by the time he did that first interview. I don't know exactly when, but I know it was within like the first 7 days or so, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no way there would not have been some remnant of that rash. There's no way.
The football game, and me and his mom and my mom started getting out Christmas decorations because I was like, let's decorate. Let's start decorating for Christmas. My niece called. And she was very frantic. And she was asking me if I had talked to Kaylee. And I was like, yeah, I had just talked to Kaylee the night before. I mean, this is around 1:30-ish. I felt like I had just talked to Kaylee, last night. And she's like, no, recently, Aunt Christy, really recent. And I was like, no, why? And she said, Aunt Christy, something bad happened to Kaylee. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, I don't know the details, but I heard that there was a party last night and that Kaylee got shot at this party. That was the initial. And I was just like, what? I threw my phone across the room. I started yelling to Steve and my husband and my son and my mother-in-law and start calling everybody. So I immediately start calling Kaylee. Kaylee's phone goes directly to voicemail.
If Kaylee's phone was going straight to voicemail, that means it was off. So I wonder if it was also off when Dylan and Bethany were trying to call her.
Maddie, he's calling the hospital. My son is calling the police department. I'm calling Olivia, telling Olivia to start calling people. And Maddie's phone, nobody's answering. It's ringing. I'm calling Jack. It's ringing. I get Olivia on the phone, our oldest daughter, and she's like, Mom, you got to calm down. If Kaylee was shot at a party last night, Maddie or Jack would have called you. Something's just not right. And I'm like, Sabrina is not going to call me and tell me this. Something's wrong. So we turn on the TV. Well, we turn the channel and we see live news coverage at Kaylee's house, 1122 King Road. Kaylee's car in the driveway, Maddie's car in the driveway. It's sectioned off and it says unconscious person. And we were just like, okay, what does this mean? Can you get that off? And the police department was telling Steve, we don't have any information. That name isn't familiar. The hospitals are telling our son, we don't have anybody by that name. Within the next couple hours, our daughter started getting phone calls and people started texting them saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry, but that, your sister was killed. Just from random, people, my name is such and such. I'm a neighbor. We were just like, what in the world is going on? And, no answers. And about 5:30 that evening, the sheriff.
We had a call before. We had a neighbor call us and tell us that it was true.
About 10 minutes before the sheriff came, one of the neighbors down there of the girls called one of our daughters. I don't know if it was Autumn or Aubrey, and said, I want to tell you I'm a neighbor and Kaylee and Maddie are both dead. And it was Aubrey. And Aubrey was like, I was just told and we're like, who told you? And she said she's the neighbor. And she said that Kaylee and Maddie are both dead. And then about 10 minutes later, the sheriff came. And
so how many hours was that approximately to when I know you were getting intermittent, messaging in between, and there's kind of almost, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's almost like this, well, no, not yet. No. And then all of a sudden it's
It was about 4 hours.
Okay.
It
Wow.
was.
And
yeah.
was that your local sheriff, or was
Yes.
that Latah County Sheriff?
It
It was your local sheriff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Karen and Scotty, Maddie's mom and dad, they're all the way down there. So we were talking with them, and are you guys there yet? Da da da, and they were like, no. Have you guys heard anything?
Karen was. She had just seen that there was an unconscious person on the news and at the kids' house, and so she was like, "I'm going down to get the girls." And they're not answering their phones. She just figured they were caught up in whatever was going on. That's why they weren't answering. So they just headed down, and when I talked to her, she was 25 minutes out from Moscow. She's like, I'm getting ready to pick up the girls. And I did not have the heart to say.
Why would any news station report on an unconscious person? Like, that's not newsworthy. No one would care enough to watch. There's no news segment that I can find where they only talk about an unconscious person. They do reference the 911 call and why the initial call was for an unconscious person, but there's no news broadcast that I can find that only says unconscious person and shows the King Road house. Chrissy says it was like roped off, so why would they have crime scene tape for an unconscious person? That doesn't even make sense. This is another lie that the G's are telling us. But why?
Well, I was telling her, we've been told that it's Kaylee and that she was shot, and she's just like, I'm going, Chrissy, I'll be there soon. And we were just kind of frozen. We didn't really know what to do. And then the sheriff came and he said that it was a quadruple homicide. And
we brought up the shooting. We'd heard somebody said fentanyl and stuff. So
yeah, somebody said that they had OD'd.
And thank God he did that. I'm so glad that I guess so many people who just won't be honest with us, but he was like, no, Mr. Gonzalez, that's not true. This was a homicide. Somebody killed. So we knew right off the bat. So then we could stop the rumors right then and there, try to do the right thing. But yeah, my son had already heard that it was a fentanyl OD, and he's still going to college down there.
We were like, that's insane. Like, there's no way, And then we had heard they were shot, and then we heard that it was an OD. We were just like, no. He said, no, it was a homicide. And I said, a homicide? I said, they were murdered? And he said, yes. And then we asked, was one of them Maddie? And he said, yes. And it was... he left, he gave us a card and said, here's the investigator, call him tomorrow. And we were like, tomorrow? And we were like, what do we do? Like, do we go down there? And he's like, no, there's no reason to go down there. We were just like,
so we went into action.
Wow.
All my girls had already talked to people.
Olivia headed up. She left. She's down in LA. She immediately went. As soon as the sheriff came, I called her and I said, Kaylee's gone. And I said, and Maddie's gone. And she's like, we're in the car. We're heading up. They drove all through the night. And Olivia just went into like straight detective mode. She got that food truck video. She talked to the driver.
She got everything. Yeah.
She talked to the driver that drove the girls home that night. She talked to, she talked to some people that they were with at the corner bar. She talked to the girl across the street.
So we started watching the footage. We started making timelines, coming together, trying to figure out as much as we possibly could. And, you just got to get active. And I don't know, maybe you get lucky and the guys caught red-handed. For us, we never seem to have that kind of luck. And so I felt like we were going to be in for it. And I've always said, if you're going to arrest somebody and take them off the street for years, you better have the evidence and you better show it to people. And I don't want to live in a place where we can lock people up and then hide all the evidence and just say, you're going to have to trust us. You're just going to have to realize that we know more than you know. And it's like, well, then show us the information and let us make our own decision.